Christ had intrinsic dignity. He was God himself. Perfect man, perfect God. So he has that perfect attribution and the perfect intrinsic dignity too. Okay? Acquired dignity. Now here's where Christ revolutionizes everything. See, for us, when we talk about acquired dignity, we're always thinking about, very often we're thinking about gaining honor in other people's minds, right? How do I increase my dignity? We often attribute acquired dignity with attributed dignity. And so we kind of confuse the two. So we start to think, well, how do we know when I'm really great? Well, when people praise me for being great, right? And then when people, shame on you, bad boy, or, they think nobody recognizes when I made that free throw shot, and I look around. You ever seen people do that? Like they'll tell a joke and they kind of, they're waiting for that laughter. So why? Well, because very often we confuse attributed dignity, what people say to us, to acquired dignity, what we're gaining through our effort. Well, Christ shows us that these aren't the same, because when he died on the cross, people attributed to him shame. They're shameful. He's there stripped naked on the cross. They whipped him. They called him a criminal. They called him a liar and a glutton. He was attributed, a lack of dignity. But he actually, by sacrificing himself out of love, he gained dignity. Is that interesting? So, eventually, though, everyone will attribute to Christ's dignity. At the name of Jesus, every knee shall bend, every tongue shall confess that he is Lord. So right now, the attributed dignity that's owed to him is not what he's getting, but he'll get it in the long run. Why? Because of his intrinsic dignity, because it's his. And he will receive it. Okay, all right. Isn't this is great? You're like, wow. Can we go deeper? No. All right. So then to wrap up, what are the consequences? So we talked about Adam and Christ. We looked at Adam and Christ in terms of the three types. We've recognized that there are different ways of recognizing three types. And now, what are the consequences? Show me the money. Okay. So the first fundamental principle of all morality, coming back to this, is human dignity. And we would say the fundamental human dignity is intrinsic dignity. What you have in yourself, what you have by your essence. Your dignity lasts through time. All human beings are worthy of honor and respect because of what they are. They're worthy of honor and respect because of what they are. Even if they have lost the third type, they are still worthy of honor and respect because of what they are. This is true from the first moment of their biological existence all the way until the last moment of their biological existence, and even beyond that. This is why we have funerals. We're recognizing the dignity of the person. The dignity of the body. This body held an immortal soul, and so it's worthy of honor. Okay, so that's the first thing, is that dignity is the fundamental principle of human morality, and it's something that lasts intrinsically. The second thing that I think is worth knowing is that it involves what I'm going to call an inviolable quality. In other words, there's something that we can't violate about human dignity. We have an obligation not to use other people and to manipulate them for the sake of their gain. Here's what Blessed John Paul II said. The human person cannot be subordinated as a means to an end or as an instrument. He has a value of his own. He's a person. By his intelligence and will, he's capable of entering into a relationship of communion, of solidarity, of the gift of himself to others, and to receive others himself. So what happens then when we start to consider morality is that the question arises because there are some persons, some human persons, who cannot live as persons without the help of persons. I'm going to repeat that. What starts to happen in our world is that there are some persons, like say little babies, who can't live as persons. The little baby can't fully actualize its dignity. It can't acquire that dignity without the help of other persons. Right? You know, some animals when they're born, as soon as they're born, they can start to walk around. It's really amazing. And, you know, the little baby, okay, walk. Go ahead. That baby's not going to do anything. Like, that baby, you know, is in a state of, it still needs to be formed. It still needs to, you know, grow hair, protect itself. That baby will not be able to protect itself no matter, like, how many weapons you give it. I gave him a gun and I figured he'd be okay. I left some water, food in a dish. Isn't that enough? No. Why? Because some persons need other persons so they can live as persons. You see? So in order to actualize, or in order to acquire that dignity, to manifest the dignity that we have, well, some of us depend on other people. And so then that leads to what people have called the silver rule. Do you know what the golden rule is? You know what the golden rule is? What's the golden rule?
Do unto others as others would do, as you would want others to do unto you.
Yeah, all right, yeah, all right. Gold star.
Close enough?
Yeah, no, that's perfect, that's perfect. So what's the silver rule?
Well, did you know that, at least we're taught now, I'm saying this time to keep cheap, that the golden rule has been supplanted by the platinum rule.
Okay, what's that?
The golden rule is treat others as you would like to be treated. The platinum rule is treat others the way they want to be treated.
Oh, that's true, people say that, yep.
Because the way you want to be treated might not be the way they want to be treated.
Right, yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, no.
That one makes me nauseous. But.
Yeah. I'd like you to treat me like I was king. What happens when everybody wants to be king? That's awkward. Didn't think about that. So the silver rule is do not do to others what you would not have them do to you. So it's just the negative form of the silver rule, or the golden rule. And basically what it boils down to is avoid harming other people. We can put it this way: do not violate their intrinsic dignity. Somebody has intrinsic dignity. It's something they have by nature. Don't violate that. Well, God puts it this way: do not kill. That's one way of not violating human nature. But there are many, many other ways. And so there are moral then implications to having human dignity. And there are rights that you have. You have a right for your dignity to be preserved, your intrinsic dignity to be preserved. And you also have a duty to help other people, to help preserve their human dignity insofar as it's within your power and so on. And this is why there are, say, Good Samaritan laws, right? So what a Good Samaritan law is, if you see me drowning, you know, I was trying to surf and I failed, and you're there at your Baywatch moment, you see me and you run and slow-mo and get in, and okay, you saved me, and now I sue you. How dare you? You hurt my arm. You're pulling me out of the water and saving my life. So a Good Samaritan law is basically to protect Good Samaritans. But why would we want a law like that at all? Because everybody sometime is going to need help. But ultimately, because it's natural for us to try to protect somebody else's dignity. It's natural to protect somebody else's dignity. You have to do it prudently. You have to do it in a way that doesn't, give you a great risk. But ultimately, what this shows us is that it's natural for us to protect human dignity. And I'm going to say, because human dignity lasts for our entire lives, it's natural for us to protect human dignity from our entire lives, from birth until death. and then we'll see what that means in our next classes. All right. So, any questions now? No? Is that well explained, or is that confusing? Is one or the other? Yeah.
Is there human dignity before birth?
Good question. Okay. So the
Repeat
question,
question.
she says, is there human dignity before birth? Okay, so the principles that I was saying was, if it is identifiable as a thing, as, whatever it is, then it's going to have the dignity that the thing receives. So then the question is there a human being before birth?
Yep,
Oh, boy.
from the moment of conception.
From the moment of conception. Yeah. Yeah. How do we know? I mean, we're getting into biology and so on. But I can tell you a little story. It's about a mommy who loved but how do we know that it's a human being? There are clear, identifiable markers. For one thing, it's really simple. It has a complete genetic code. Okay? Half of it's given by the dad, half of it's given by the mom, and without these two elements coming together, you only have half a genetic code. You don't have a living thing. But as soon as they come together, that DNA is zipped up, as it were, and now it's a complete thing. What kind of thing? It's actually a someone. It's not a what, it's a who. Little Billy. So, as soon as it is a human being, it has the dignity of a human being. Now, and it's really easy for us to see how the implications just fall out from everything I've been saying. Yeah? Yep.
If you don't want to go down this road, I will totally respect that. But I know that the topic is human dignity, and this was really cool. But are there other kinds of dignity other than human dignity? Like, I don't know. Like, I guess in school, like the kids, when we talk about like love and what love is, I keep it to like a human interaction, like a human thing, because I'm not talking about animals, but they often bring up animals.
Yeah.
And like, I'm like, we're going to table that and come back to that never. Like, but like, put on there for a week, and I mean.
Yeah.
But like, are there other types of dignity besides human dignity?
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
Yeah, okay. So the basic answer to that is yes, there are different types of dignity, not human dignity, and we would say that it's a difference in kind, but also a difference in degree. Okay, and how is that identified? We would say that something is more dignified the more like God it becomes. That's our ultimate standard. I mean, from a theological perspective. So, okay. God. Now there, that is Father Jerome. He's at the peak. It's really amazing. So, is that acquired? No. You didn't do anything to get there. Okay, so the closer a thing is to God, the more intrinsic dignity it has. We're talking about intrinsic, not acquired at this point. So intrinsic dignity, so what's between God and human beings? This is going to be ugly. Oh my gosh, it looks like a bat, but that's actually an angel. Fight that. Okay. Sorry, should have practiced that beforehand. Anyway, why? An angel has more intrinsic dignity than a human being because it's more like God. It's more intelligent, it's more wise, it's more loving, and so on. Okay, more intrinsic dignity because the more you're like God, the more dignity you have. God has infinite dignity. Okay. Now, underneath man, there's going to be like dolphins, pretty close up here, and apes on that side. Why? Well, I mean, it's true that an ape has more dignity, insofar as it has dignity at all, than like a clam, And, okay, well, not much dignity there. Okay, but I mean, think about an ape for a second, or like a dog. They have emotions, right? Yeah, the tear. Elephants cry. Did you know that? Yeah, I can tell you a story about that. Want to have a story? I'll tell a story.
It's too sad.
Okay, so anyway, but you can tell that that's, that it's a higher being. I would call it a higher being because it participates more in a kind of a dignity. Now, like I said, it's a different kind of dignity between man and the rest of the world. See, man is actually on this surfboard because he can lose, he can lose acquired dignity, but his intrinsic dignity is always up there. But we have apes and dolphins, and then clams down here, and then just like rocks. And so what this shows us is that there is a hierarchy in nature, created things, and so that's going to help us to see. And I'm just talking about the intrinsic nature of it, not because what some people will try to do is they'll say, oh well, I know some people who are vegetables, right? So the whole Terry Schiavo case, we're familiar with that. She was just a vegetable, and so she was actually, here's Bobo the monkey, wow, what is that? Anyway, Bobo the monkey, and Terry, she's down here somewhere. Why? Because she's a vegetable. But why would that be wrong according to everything we just talked about?
Because she's still human.
She has the intrinsic dignity. She doesn't change what she was. Yeah.
Just to play on that too, over the weekend I saw a movie called You Don't Know Jack. Have you heard that? It's about Dr. Jack Morton.
Oh.
It's actually really good.
Okay.
I really like movies like that. But it's that same point. And I think that the argument is that if you look at it from the other side, they say, yes, she does have dignity, so she shouldn't exist in this way. Look at her. Look at this person. This is torture for this person.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what his argument was for that. And these people were, like being tortured by their own predicament physically. It was, yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so this is really good. Right. So some people will say, oh, okay. Well, we admit it has intrinsic dignity. And therefore, we ought to accord the person all the intrinsic dignity that is justifiably theirs. Now, the thing is, if somebody has intrinsic dignity, they're human beings, what do we say? That it gets into the whole notion of suffering, but we would say at the very least that the innocent should not die. It's a basic, one of the principles that I mentioned was that people have dignity that lasts through time, and we should not use a person, but rather that we should recognize that their life is more than simply something that's acquired or lost. Okay, so we're not going to get into that, answering that in full detail, but we will say that we shouldn't kill innocent people, even if they're suffering. It's different. It's a different thing to shoot a horse if it breaks a leg, than to shoot a person if they break their leg, because it's a different kind of person. A horse isn't a person at all. So, all right. I think we've gone on long enough, so I think it's time for a break. So, well, thank you. Now we can discuss these issues. I think Father Jerome has the questions, right?
I do.
Okay, all right, good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.